Hello, it's Cried here with a dedicated lightning build. Lightning is perhaps, scratch that. Lightning is the most awkward element in Elden Ring. Why is that the case? Let's take a look at an example. This is a spear. If we infuse it with lightning affinity, it becomes the lightning spear. Oops, sorry, wrong lightning spear. Hey, at least it's not the Fire Knight's Fire Greatsword. Anyways, my example was not all a joke though. Lightning infusion scales your weapon to dexterity, and the bullet portion of lightning skills, even unique ones like the bolt of Grandsax, all scale to dexterity as well. Furthermore, there's not that many lightning ashes of war to choose from. The other way to deal lightning damage is through incantations, but no sacred seal besides the frenzied flame seal, which is a quad scaling seal, scales to dexterity. And because the frenzied flame seal is quad scaling, it scales poorly to dexterity. So to use these lightning incantations, your best bet is to invest in faith. However, you can't use electrify armament on a lightning infused weapon, nor can you perform the incantation on either of the faith infusions. You would need to run this incantation on a heavy or keen infused weapon, which scales the weapon to strength or dexterity. For faith scaling options, we only have flame and sacred, making lightning a truly awkward element to utilize some easy sources of damage bonus, like the lightning shrouding crack tier. So what can we do? Well, the DLC introduced two weapons with lightning damage that do scale to Faith, even though Faith is not either of the weapon's best scaling. The two Death Knight's axe both have good unique weapon skills that can be used for this build. And thankfully, while the lightning bullet portion of the skills still scale to dexterity, it is not a big part of the damage. The raw attack is. And for the raw attack, both of the axes actually scale best to strength. So let's see, should we go for a strength faith split or a pure faith one? At 58 strength and 45 faith, the Clawmark seal only has 289 spell power, which is honestly not a whole lot. Using the same level of investment, we're getting 353 from the Erdtree seal, which is a whole 22% higher. As for the Gravelstone seal, due to defense calculations, this does about the same amount of damage as the Erdtrees, so we're going to keep it on our main hand for the Dragon Cult bonus by dual-wielding seals when we're not using our weapon, since our Sacred Seal setup greatly favors the Pure Faith path. Let's check out how much attack we're losing. Compared to the Strength Faith split, the Twin Axe loses 7.9% attack, while the Long-Haft Axe loses a bit more, at 11.8% attack. In either weapon's case though, I think it's definitely worth taking the loss in attack to get a lot more spell power from our seal. So which weapon should you choose? Honestly, both of them works, but I suggest only picking one of them because it's a hassle to switch between three weapons, and we're already running the double seals for the 15% Dragon Cult incantation bonus. Their weapon skills take nearly identical amounts of time to execute, while also doing similar amounts of stance damage. But the Long-Haft does get super armor while in the air. Furthermore, Twin Knight axes feel more like a pure weapon arts tool, so I prefer the Long-Haft axe. As an additional bonus, if you end up two-handing the weapon for some encounters, you also get hyper armor on your charged heavies, just like other great axes. It makes your charged heavy attack yet another option to do more stance damage. Talking about stance damage, let's take a look at the incantations that I run. Knight's Lightning Spear is a great ranged option introduced in the DLC. It deals great damage and a good amount of stance damage, especially when charged, which is a good stance damage tool when combined with our weapon art. But Knight's Lightning Spear does cost quite a bit of FP per cast, so for exploration, there are a few other options you can pick from. Lightning Spear is an okay alternative for saving FP and can be charged. It does deal a lot less poise damage and damage, so only use this when you know your charged lightning spear is enough. Lightning Strike is a straight line AoE that can be chain casted in quick succession. This provides you an AoE tool against weaker enemies. Similarly, Honed Bolt can be chain casted quickly, but I find that if I need to chain cast this many times, I might as well charge up a Knight's Lightning Spear in the first place. Therefore, I don't run this incantation. Overall though, Knight's Lightning Spear is your best ranged option during bosses thanks to its stance damage. Combined with your weapon art that deals a significant amount of poise damage, you can definitely combo with this Spell Axe build for the stance break. And what do you do after the stance break? Ancient Dragon's Lightning Strike is our big nuke. When charged, this is one of the hardest, if not the hardest hitting incantation in the entire game, especially on larger enemies. However, outside of stance breaks, you will not always find time to pull this incantation off, as it provides no hyper armor whatsoever. This is where Fortisax's Lightning Spear can come in handy. This is an excellent AoE incantation that provides 300 hyper armor and also deals up to 43.6 stance damage, giving you yet another option to combo into a stance break. As for the other Dragon Cult incantations, feel free to incorporate them into your build as well, but in general, these serve similar purposes to at least one of the incantations we're running, but tend to be weaker options. Since all our damage incantations are Dragon Cult incantations, our starting point for armor is the Death Knight set, as each piece of this set gives a 2% damage bonus to Dragon Cult incantations. However, the whole set does not reach 51 poise, which is the PvE poise breakpoint. I believe swapping the greaves out is the best way to not mess with fashion too much. I swapped to the Malformed Dragon Greaves to reach 51 poise while still keeping the black and gold fashion. There is an alternative. The Priestess Heart item allows you to transform into dragon form if you're not wearing any armor. The transformation provides 7% negation and 70 resistance. Using the item again while transformed grants you a 20% damage boost to Dragon Cult incantations for 60 seconds. I did not take this path because first up, the bonus stats do not favor negation as much as Priestess Heart's counterpart, Rock Heart, which boosts Dragon Communion incantations. Furthermore, we get no benefit out of staying extremely lightweight, like the Dragon Maul half of the combo in my Way of the Martial Dragon. Therefore, having much higher negation and resistances while still retaining 6% damage boost for Dragon Cult incantations is much more favorable as we are able to reach 51 poise. Having the poise is nice for this build, as oftentimes we fight at melee range, since this is more of a Spellblade build and not a ranged incantation spam build. You can still take the Priestess Heart, but better negation also prevents getting one-shotted as you go into higher NG pluses. As for the stats, this is my stat distribution at level 150. You can go for 80 faith by dropping other points, but I think putting 5 more points into mind allows your FP pots to be more efficient, as your incantations and even your weapon art are not really on the cheap side. If you're going higher than level 150, here is an example, as this build does scale quite well even past 150. For my talismans, I'm running the Dragon Crest Great Shield alongside other talismans that boost my damage. The Lightning Scorpion Charm is another consideration for this build, despite its downsides, because we're mostly doing lightning damage. Talismans like Godfrey, Flock, or Shard of Alexander are only buffing one aspect of our build. Thus, we're not receiving the full advantage of these talismans. Then again, the difference really isn't that big, so feel free to slot any other talismans as well. For the crystal tiers, I'm running the Lightning Shrouding Crack tier and the Opaline Heart tier. Pretty standard, other than the aforementioned fact that lightning is a lot more difficult to utilize in a Spellblade build. Like and subscribe. If you want to support my work, please consider buying my fantasy novel or donating to my Patreon down below. With the book purchase, you can also request a topic from me. Krite, signing out.